Hi, welcome to the Semiotic Eye, a podcast where you get to learn about all things semiotics. The following episodes will include conversations between Hamsini Shivakumar, India's leading semiotician and founder of Leapfrog Strategy Consulting, and Anurag Vesh, the founder of Mensa, a social media platform for audio sharing. The live audience listening to the conversations were allowed to interject and ask questions. Unfortunately, you won't be able to do the same here. However, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us on Leapfrog Strategy Consulting on LinkedIn. We hope this podcast is insightful to you and deepens your understanding of semiotics.
So, the reason why I thought of talking about dark versus light semiotically is because we've been doing some work and we've been watching on a project and we've been watching a lot of content. And we observed, it's not a surprise that, depictions when the filmmakers want to underline that, who is the good side, who are the good guys and who are the bad guys. Spaces in which the bad guys are to be found will be colored, will be shown as dark spaces in contrast to where the good guys are, which are shown as bright or well lit or light spaces. So that sort of thought made me think about this topic a bit more, and I thought it might be interesting to just talk about dark and light from a semiotic point of view, how we may interpret it both cognitively and culturally. So we could look at dark and light in two ways. One is colors, with respect to colors, and then with respect to light and dark as they are. So it's not color. So we're not talking about darker colors versus lighter colors, but we are talking about dark versus light in the sense of where there is light and where it is dark. You switch off the light and it's dark. So in that sense of light and dark. But I'm going to start first with the cognitive and the color aspect of and how we might interpret dark colors. So in a commonsensical way, we might look and we might say that, actually dark colors absorb and hide dirt, whereas white or light colors reveal dirt. So from a utilitarian viewpoint, we may decide therefore that darker colors should be used in, furnishings like sofa covers and carpets and heavy use areas, etc., so that they don't appear dirty or they don't need immense and ongoing cleaning. So it's just much more practical to use darker colors than lighter colors. And you have black umbrellas, of course. So that's another expression. And from this, there is a kind of connotation that derives from this, of the use of dark versus light and the linking of dark versus light, or darker colors and lighter colors, with the utilitarian aspect of cleaning and keeping it light and white versus the light and white getting progressively dirtier and darker. So from here, there's a kind of, logical connection that goes towards light colors are used by the wealthy and darker colors by the working class, because light colors, the wealthy can afford all that cleaning and they live in air-conditioned environments, more dust-free environments in the Indian context. So if you want to live in cooler and dust-free environments in the Indian context, you do need to be upper middle class or wealthy on an ongoing basis, that is. If you don't have that kind of money, then you are better off taking darker colors. The other aspects that I have found when working in different categories is that, especially in alco-bev, there is a clear connotation of color that people infer, which is that darker is strength and lighter is mild. So the darker colored drink is likely to be a stronger alcohol and have higher alcohol content. And from there, the connection to a kind of machismo. And that has been much leveraged by Thumbs Up as the cola, right? So it's a dark colored drink, the cola. And then it's also, of course, used as a mixer. But the cola dark, masculine machismo and Thumbs Up, Taste the Thunder and Tufani and all that has been kind of used. And the brown spirits versus white spirits, but they're actually not white. They are transparent. The vodka, for a long time, and even now in India is a brown spirits market because alcohol consumption and its connotation and its association with masculinity and machismo is very, very deep rooted. And so nobody has succeeded in converting India from a brown brown bev, alco bev market to actually becoming a light white alco bev market. It's quite interesting. While people logically know that vodka has 42% alcohol and gin similarly, and so also white rum and all that, but nevertheless, the perceptive aspect of that brown color and the darker brown color and its connotation of strength and machismo is very strong. It seems almost impossible to dispel it through logical understanding or any other type of understanding. So these are sort of the cognitive sense-based understanding of light and darker colors or darker shades of a color versus the lighter shades of a color. Darker shades versus lighter shades is of course a huge topic, so I am not going into that. But dark colors, let's say like black, grey, brown, navy blue, etc. versus the light colors like white, cream, pale yellow, light pink, sky blue, those kind of lighter colors. So now coming to the symbolic interpretation of black, white and dark light, when we look at the colors per se, colors actually, as I had spoken about, are very context based. So the interpretation and meaning can be quite context based, and I can list several. So if we start with fashion, you do have two kinds of connotations of black. One is the authority, because black is the color of lawyers' gowns. It's the, CEO suits. So even brands, when in graphic design, they want to connote, their authority, power and authority, then they would typically use capital letters, heavy lettering, and also put it in black or some near black color, even a navy blue, etc. But they wouldn't put that in, let's say, orange or yellow or some multicolor, etc. if they want to connote power and authority. Because it kind of goes back to this authority figures dressed in black. The other connotation of black, of course, is the color of glamour. And that's what you find in black tuxedos for men and that little black dress and black gown for women. So, and, in many places, even in restaurants and other places which are high-end and premium, you will find that the male staff will be dressed in black and black. Even female staff may be dressed in black and black to kind of lift the glamour connotation of that expensive or luxury eating place. So Deepika Padukone on stage at the Oscars just now, she wore the black gown, and Junior NTR's jacket was also heavy, black with this little big symbol of a lion stitched onto it. But in India, because of this other side of it, the white is also a sign of sophistication and style. May not be glamour as such, but it's definitely, if you wear a white top or you wear white chicken curry, for example, it is a sign of sophistication and style. Perhaps in many ways, going back to the sensory assessment of the clean and, not necessarily purity, but the cleanliness and the clean and the ability to maintain these crisp white clothes and wear them in a dusty kind of environment means that you have to be wealthy and affluent, and then you are also that affluent person who has this sense of sophistication and style. But on the other hand, you have the white safari suits, the white dhoti kurtas and the white kurta pajamas, which are worn by the political class, which doesn't really connote sophistication and style, but it does connote maybe that they are clean. They are quite popular among the political class. Widows wear white, but Sabarimala devotees wear black dhotis and shirts. So in a sense, when you remove color, you become abstinent, you give up desire, In the case of widows, it's also could be connected with mourning, but the real connection is when you remove color, you become abstinent and you give up desire. Because in our understanding, color and bright color and multicolor is hard coded in our culture as joy, excitement, and fun. Maybe I don't know whether it derives from Holi, but maybe not, because Holi is not a South Indian festival, but or a East Indian festival for that matter. But everywhere color is seen as bright. Color and brightness and multicolor is joy, excitement, and fun, which is why, like in Western fashion, I have seen that much of Western fashion, especially for women, is styled on black, grey, cream, white, navy blue, monochrome, usually maximum dual color. So all drawing from these glamour codes, which are supposed to be like this. But Indians actually, many Indians may not perceive it that way, even if you try and teach them. But that hard coding and hard wiring in our cultural DNA is towards color and being colorful. And if you remove color completely, then it does sort of take you into the space of becoming abstinent, giving up desire, color of mourning, and so on and so on. So much like the brown drink, and we are not a white spirits country, we are a brown spirits country. So this may also be something that's very hard coded in our DNA, and we may brands and even fashion companies might not be able to change it that much. Maybe they can for a very narrow globalized elite, but when you start going down to the mass Indian consumer, it may not work at all because of this reason. Now, when we look at movies and audio-visual communication, which is where the idea for this talk started for me, dark and black is used to underline the negative. And that could be in two ways. One is when they talk about mental health comms by brands, then, negative emotions such as sadness or depression, a pessimistic outlook and mood, all of these are usually, there is a dark filter that is applied, and you will see that it's shot and it looks like that. It's not shot with lot of light and brightness, but it's shot in a way in which with filters or other treatments to actually give you the sense of a pessimistic outlook and mood. So people going into a dark place, right? They find themselves in a dark place when the mental health moves into the negative zone. The other, of course, is the evil and villainous qualities when, you are black-hearted people. So are you white or pure-hearted versus are you black-hearted and hence evil and villainous qualities? So as I said, spaces in which evil and villainous people are found are color coded into this darker direction versus the lighter direction. Whereas light or brightness is used to underline the positive. So where there's a lot of sun, bright sun, then the mood is much more upbeat and positive and the outlook is optimistic. And light is also moral goodness because you have seen the light. And, that light dispels darkness is a metaphor for good dispelling evil or wicked thoughts and deeds, etc., etc. So, in Diwali communication, obviously, this lights dispelling darkness is a metaphor that is often used in Diwali communication. Now, what is interesting is that while black and white can be contextually connoted differently, it can also be culturally connoted differently, etc. The universality there is universality in the interpretation of light versus dark. So that the idea that when there is light, whether it's sunlight or artificial light, when light enters a place, it is transformed in a positive way. And, light dispels dark thoughts, heavy and negative emotions, as well as evil designs. It removes fears. It brings transparency and clarity. Whereas when and where it is dark, that is, there is no light or absence of light, the place is transformed in a negative way. And darkness activates fears, it activates evil thoughts and, heavy and depressive feelings. Connected to this idea of the light and the dark, it's also interesting the universality that heaven is always up above, beyond the visible sky, and is always depicted as a place that is bathed in light, whereas hell is always below the earth and is always depicted as a dark place. So that's quite universal, and you know, so there is something to this, and so even if you look at the white moon in the dark sky or the stars that shine in the dark sky and so on, so the light is the positive and the dark activates fear. So if we sort of try to think about where does this come from and where is it, there's this universality of understanding of dark versus light come from. My hypothesis is it's a kind of throwback to our migratory history, our evolution as sapiens, the long history of mankind or humankind when there was no electricity. People had to live by the rhythms of nature following the sun, right? Sunrise and sunset. So the dark in a world where there is no electricity and it's the places have to be lit by candles or have to be lit by other sort of more limited sources, then the dark was a place of fear, and light, everything good happened when the sun rose and there was sunlight. So perhaps, although we have moved into an industrial or modern economy and there is electricity and we can light up places the way we want, how much ever we want in today's world, but that long history perhaps is the reason why there is this universal understanding of light and dark. I'm going to end here and open it up for discussion, thoughts, ideas from the audience.
Fascinating, Hamsini. Very interesting, right? And I was just thinking about two things, right? When you were talking, one, just think about lights and colors, right? Despite the fact that a white color is like saying it has everything and dark color means nothing. Sorry, white light means everything, dark light means nothing, and white color means nothing, and dark color means everything, right? There's a contrast is huge, right? Between the light. And yet they get seen fairly similarly perceived, right? But I was also thinking, Hamsini, that apart from the black and white and the gray and the human skin color of white and black and brown, right? I wonder, right, if this darkness, this idea that a dark colors, like a dark red or a dark blue or a dark green, all of them kind of connote or get perceived as more full, right? More endowed, more saturated, more containing, right? And people see it like that. I mean, does semiotics play a role over there also? I'm sure it does, because there's so much color play that happens right nowadays.
Yeah, no, it's true. We do. Like when you the hue, the saturation, and the light versus dark. These properties of color are very much played with by graphic designers and by people. So there is that sense, but the interpretation of the darker version versus the lighter version of the color, is it always the darker is stronger and the lighter is milder? It may not really be so. It can also come through, like for example, I've done work in natural brands where if you take green, and for them, if you have dark green, people tend to see dark green and brown as the colors of Ayurveda, because in their minds that is jadi booty, and somewhere these leaves come from the jungle, and those leaves tend to be darker green in color, whereas the pale green and the light green is seen as sort of, the color of garden plants and, shoots. And when the plant, when the new leaves come out, and the colors, that those tend to be lighter green and therefore tend to be seen as fresher and lighter than the dark green, which tends to be seen as Ayurvedic. So typically people, if you use a lot of pale greens in your pale to mid whatever kind of coloration in your representation, people will assign the word natural to it. If you put darker green colors in your representation of leaves and all of that, then people will assign Ayurvedic as the association with the darker version.
So yeah, are you suggesting that darker is generally seen as more composed versus lighter being seen as more natural? Is that the perception?
No, in this instance, in the case of the color green, I think it comes from visual iconicity with how you have seen plants and you tend to think of it that way. But in generally, if one was to sort of say that there is a generalization, then the generalization would be that the darker rendition of the color will make the product or whatever you are putting the darker color on be perceived as in some way stronger than something that is represented through a lighter color or a paler version of the same shade. So the moment you put darker versions of the same shade, it will be seen as stronger, interpreted as being stronger.
I'm sure one of the things that ancestrally we have seen, dark and light is the sky, right? And with very, very different connotations, right? The dark sky is not necessarily a great sky from a cloudy perspective and everything, right? And a light sky is like all relaxed and everything. And I don't know how much that gets coded in all our sensibilities around color and light. But this is fantastic, Hamsini. Thank you so much.
Okay, there is space for thanks, Anurag. There's space for, I think, one more question if anybody else has a comment or a question.
So since nobody else is here, Ajinkya is here. Ajinkya, do you want to say? So I was just thinking that is any of this hardwired or it's just all cultural, right? Because we know, right? I mean, if you travel the world, you will see how colors are so different in different cultures, right? So I'm guessing that a whole lot of colors is maybe a lot more cultural, even though light can be fairly hardwired, right? In that sense, as compared to colors.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm concluding with. That light and dark is more universal. That interpretation of the presence of light and the absence of light as darkness, that interpretation, there is a universality to it, which I am attributing to our sapiens and living in, dark environments and the fears and all that, which are more universal and human. But when you attach it to colors specifically, then it does become more cultural.
Absolutely.
Universal. And that's my conclusion from all the work that I have done.
Super. See you then. Thank you so much.
Yeah, see you. Bye.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to The Semiotic Eye. Please stay tuned for more episodes of this podcast. And if you want to learn more about semiotics, please go to our website leapfrogstrategy.com and access our learning center to start your semiotic journey. Bye.